Towards the end of 2023, I went through what every angler dreads the most: tackle theft. I got back from holiday with my wife to find shed doors wide open and a load of my kit completely gone. So this video isn't a case of me trying to get sympathy or anything like that. The whole situation is a few months ago now. I know that kit is long gone, but unfortunately, I've been able to come out the other side and back out fishing again today. And that's a massive thanks to a lot of you guys that watch me, that have got me to the position I am in today, where I work in the fishing industry. So it's a lot easier than most to get my kit back. That doesn't mean that I don't still have the emotional scars from it all, and I'm going to go through all that in this video. So if you take anything from this video, please let it be improve the security of your kit as soon as you possibly can. Don't do what I did and always think, my kit's fine, it's safe there, I'm in a safe enough area, I'd know if something was going on, until it's too late, because that's exactly what happened. I always wanted to improve the security of where I keep my tackle, never got around to it in time until it was too late. And yes, I plaster things on social media, but that's because that's my job. And the few of you that blamed me for getting my kit stolen for the fact that I put things on social media, that's the same way of blaming someone that has their tools stolen from their van. It's like blaming them because they have their name on the side of the van for what they do. It's an idiotic viewpoint. The people 100% to blame are the thieves, because they're the scumbags in society that steal what other people have worked hard for. That's enough of my little rant, but let's go through exactly what happened, what I've done since then, and what I think you should do to improve the security of your kit as well. So what happened? Well, in short, I was on holiday. Whether it's someone that follows me on social media or not, they clearly knew I was away, because when we got back from holiday, the sheds were wide open and a load of my kit was stolen. So absolutely distraught. The emotions going through them were rage, anger, fear, because I didn't know what these people were capable of, if they were going to come back. And this was late at night, it was October, so it was already dark outside. All I could do at that point was just secure the sheds for the night as best I could. All the locks had been broken off, so I couldn't put locks on. All the shops would have been shut, so I couldn't get new ones. So it's a case of, I put loads of screws into the door. I put bolt through all the lock holes that I could and put nuts on and tighten them up as tight as possible with spanners, so that if anyone was to break in again, they'd have to bring tools and come back and do it. So I secured it as best I could. Went inside with my wife to try and calm down, because we were shook up by this. Before we went to bed, I thought I'd just go and do another check of the sheds, and unbelievably, they'd come back whilst we were still in the house. This was an active thing that was going on. They'd backed out all the screws, they'd undone all the bolts, they'd come prepared with tools and took a load more kit. So I think that's the worst part of it. The stuff being stolen while I was on holiday, I get it, it happens, but I wasn't there when it happened. The fact they came back whilst we were still in the house, my wife was heavily pregnant at the time. The point of filming, we've got a 1-month-old, you've seen the previous video, so all's good there. But of course, emotions are high. I'm thinking our place is no longer secure. So the best I could do was close it all up as best I could. I chucked shed loads, pardon the pun, of stuff in front of all the doors, so if they had to come back, they'd be there for a good half an hour moving everything away. I then got head torches on full beam on the sheds for the rest of the night, so that they're on full spotlight. So that's the best I could do to secure up my sheds. Now I will move on to the actual police side of things. There's something you need to be aware of, that this isn't a police bashing, this is purely a use of where their resources are best going. And I called the police as soon as it had happened, and because it wasn't actively going on, they said, well, keep in touch and let us know what happens going forward. So that was it. It was logged. We had a criminal reference number, but when they came back the second time, I called them straight away. They could have still been in the area, but what you need to know is, if a crime isn't actively ongoing, I actually talked to some police friends since the event. If a crime isn't actively happening, it automatically gets chucked down the pile to something that's happened, and it'll be dealt with at a later date. If I phoned and said they are right there in the sheds right now, I can see them, they would have been more likely to come around. But because they weren't on the scene, that was one of the questions: are the thieves still on the scene? They weren't. That was the last I heard. So I understand the police is fully stretched. I understand it is a low risk, low priority thing. To me, it was huge at the time. I was thinking, why are the police not here helping me? But I understand in hindsight why I was a low priority. So let that be known, that if you're trying to get something done at the point of something going on, let it be known that if there's not an active crime, they won't come round. And that was a frustration. I understand that, like I said, that's where the resources have to go. There's probably, on a Friday night the police were probably needed elsewhere fighting crime. But at the time, I felt like I wasn't being listened to. So let that be known, that is something that was a bit of an issue at the time. Following on from that though, we did get some follow-up calls and advice from the police. So I then did as much as I could to secure the sheds since then, and I will move on to this. I had a letter from my local police telling me that if I wanted someone to come around to assess the site to see how I could improve things for security reasons. And of course I did. I want to do everything I can to try and increase the security of my tackle going forwards. So I did have someone come round. I've got to say the police from that point on, although they weren't able to do anything at the time, since then they were really, really good to assess the situation. They did increase patrols for a few days, and also I've got a note that my community, I let everyone know what had happened, because very close-knit community of old miners' cottages all close together, so everyone else has been checking the sheds and increased security. So that's one of the other things that's come from this, is that everyone that I know, or local neighbours or along my row of houses, have increased security with cameras, lights, triggers, all sorts, which I'll get onto in a second. But the police were very helpful. He came round and saw where they probably would have got in and got out, saw where I could improve things. And already since this point, by the time he'd come, I'd already been building a much higher fence. So if anyone wants to jump the fence, they'd have to get a trampoline to get round. So I've increased the security of the actual access. And since then I've also added lights. So these are some of the things that he was suggesting to me. As criminals, they want to be quiet and they don't want to be seen. So I've done things that means they're seen and they make noise. So there's a lot of issues for them getting into the place. So if you've got a house or somewhere that you're keeping your kit where it's easy access and you can't make the access more difficult, what you can do is increase the visibility of an intruder. So PIR lights, something like that. You can get pretty cheap battery powered ones or solar powered ones that any kind of motion picks up. So now if there's anyone even close to our gardens and the neighbours' gardens, it lights up to start with. And there's not just one, they're everywhere. So if someone comes into the garden, it's pretty much daytime again. Moving on from that, also getting into the sheds, don't use cheapy locks. So another thing that this letter sent over was loads of different things to get off online. It tells you good brands, sort of chains to go with, the sort of locks to go with. And so I've got pages and pages. If you want more information after seeing this video, want to know what exactly they sent me, I'm willing to scan this in and send it over to you to give you the information, hopefully preventative information rather than hindsight information. So I've increased locks and things. And I know, again, if some of you are watching this thinking, you're telling thieves exactly what they've got to do to get into your place. As I've already said, if someone wants to break into somewhere, they will. That's what the policeman was saying, that you can do all you want to try and increase security and prevent someone getting into wherever you want, but they will always find a way. Some thieves, although I think they're thick as you know what, they clearly know what they're doing. They come prepared with tools. They know what to do to get in and out quick. The fact that we were there the second time they came proves that. So these are just things to slow them down, if any. If you said if you can slow them down, that's also getting things in your favour. So it's extremely hard to get into my sheds now. There's lights everywhere. And if they do get into sheds, whatnot, I've got a PIR alarms now. So which need a code to be put in to disarm them. So again, I can put links to these in the description below. They're not very expensive, but if you don't punch in the code within a few seconds, it sounds like a rape alarm. So stupid loud, and that's going to erase alerts. So I've now covered access is a lot more difficult. They are now going to be visible if they get into my garden. And if they do somehow get into the sheds, there's then alarms going off. And not to mention, I've also got cameras rigged up now as well for any kind of motion. So I have chucked everything I can at protecting my kit from now on. And yes, you may, like I said, think, right, I now know everything he's got in his garden to try and prevent this from happening again. But like I said, you can't stop a thief if they really want to. You can just do everything you can in your favour to stop them to start with, or catch them in the act or whatnot. So take a look in the description below at some of the links of things that should help make your security a lot better. Of course, in an ideal world, I'd have a nice secure lockup or a garage or put it in my house. But for a lot of us, that isn't an option. So I've had some people comment saying, oh, I keep mine in my house or I keep mine in a locked away place. That's great if you can do that. If you can't, like me, you don't have the room elsewhere, then you have to stick with places like a shed. So that's what I've had to do. So that's all the preventative measures and trying to make things as secure as possible. But of course, as I keep saying, if a thief wants to take something from yours, they can still do that. And I can't go into too much information right now, but I am working alongside a security company at the moment who reached out to me pretty early on after the incident. And like I said, from the whole purpose of this video isn't to be like, oh, poor Joe, look what he's gone through. It's to try and encourage you to do stuff to protect your kit and make sure it doesn't happen to you. Because I don't want anyone to have to go through what we've gone through, not only getting your kit back, but also the emotional scars and the worry that you have. Every time my garden lights come on now, I'm twitching the curtains, I'm checking, I'm going down doing shed checks every evening, I'm checking the cameras all the time. Neither my wife and I can switch off. And that's the worst thing about it all. Not all the kit, The only thing that I'm really gutted about is a engraved kettle, which was one of the first gifts I got from Carapology 7 years ago. Never going to get that back. Worthless to them, but really sentimental to me. But yeah, it's the fact that we can't switch off and we now feel slightly unsafe in our own safe place. And that's the worst thing. So that's the, yeah, I'm going around in circles now, but that's the thing that I find the hardest, is that my wife and I don't feel as safe as we once did in our own house and garden, knowing that these people are about and are willing to do what they can to get your hands on your hard-earned stuff. But as I said, I'm working with a security company at the moment. I can't say too much about the sign and non-disclosure because it's in the workings at the moment, but I will give you more information as soon as I can about that. And it's a tracking device. So if your kit was to be stolen, you'd have a huge chance of finding exactly where it went and getting it back without the need to go through insurance and police like I did and buying it all back. So if you can prevent it, great. If you can't, but your kit's still tracked and you know exactly where it's gone, or you've put some bits on it so that if police find it, you can prove it's yours, and that's a bonus as well. But as I said, I can't go too much information on that right now because it's still in the works, but I will as soon as I can. So I hope this video has been informative. You've taken something from this and think, yeah, you know what? I am going to do something about my shed. I'm going to do something about my garage. I'm going to increase the locks. I'm going to increase the lights. I'm going to do something to make my kit more secure so that you don't have to go through the same thing I and thousands of other people have. And that's the other thing for social media, the amount of people that message me saying they've experienced the same, whether that be tackle theft or tool theft, it is horrendous. So do everything you can to avoid it. I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. Although it was a bit of a somber subject, I hope you've got something from it. So please like the video if you did and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Oh, and one other thing before I go. As I said, I am out fishing today and I've actually just caught one of the lake's biggest fish at 28.5 pounds, a bit down in weight than what it's previously come out at, but I'll end the video on this fish. Well, I can't say this is one that was on my hit list for up here. It's a fish known as the mug, and it isn't the prettiest, or at least the face end isn't, but it is the biggest, if not the biggest, in here. And it comes out around the 30 mark, low at times, over at times. I think it probably depends on the time of year, depends on the scales, and depends on the person. But I've just had it at its upper 20 weight of 28.5 pounds. So although it wasn't on my hit list, I'm not going to say no. Towards the end of January, on a very quiet day with not so much as a liner, rods were on the deck, saw the tip just bouncing around. I thought, oh, here we go. And as soon as I lifted into it, I thought, this just feels like a weight. And sure enough, it was. So my biggest out of here in all the years I've been fishing Newton Park. And like I said, it's probably the biggest in here. At 28.5 pounds, it's not at its biggest weight. But it's a personal best for me from Newton Park. 28.5 pounds, probably putting more of a fight on the mat than he did in the actual fight. But that sort of size, I don't think anyone can complain for the end of January on a very slow session. As he doesn't seem to want that side to be shown, I'll show you the other side. Still for a few seconds. We'll attempt to get some snaps and I'll slip him back. Tell you what, as you're here, do you mind just pressing the trigger button for me while I hold him up? It should all be framed up all right to go.